NTR.
Hallo. Goedenavond thuis. Welkom bij College Tour. Hij houdt het nog geen 2 jaar vol op Harvard University. Dan begint hij met zijn compaan Paul Allen een bedrijf dat de wereld zal veranderen. Forbes, het maandblad, zegt dat hij goed is voor $82 miljard. En dat maakt hem tot de rijkste man van de wereld. Veel van het geld geeft hij uit via de Bill en Melinda Gates Foundation aan goede doelen en aan de bestrijding van ziektes als polio, malaria en TBC. Hij is een van de meest invloedrijke mannen van deze eeuw. En samen met 1600 studenten hier in het Circus Theater in Scheveningen interview ik Bill Gates. Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming. Thanks a million for being here. It's exciting. Are you used to groups like these to speak to students?
That looks like a very energetic group. I'm excited.
They are. I just said that you spent less than 2 years at Harvard University. Did you ever regret that you didn't finish your time there?
No. They did give me an honorary degree later, but I'm a college dropout.
Yeah. One of the standard questions that we start with is always, as a student, how wild were you in the category sex, drugs, and rock and roll? What happened?
No, I studied too much, I think. I loved going to class. Harvard was a great place. I met a lot of smart people, but I wouldn't say that I was a big partier.
No? Nothing? No beer, no alcohol, no drugs?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah. So you skipped the wild years as a student? Absolutely, yeah.
No, I was so excited about what I saw happening with computers that, you know, they'd been really daunting, and now I saw they could be a tool for the individual. So I was, you know, kind of pursuing that dream and surprised other people didn't see the same thing.
So you thought that they were a little bit crazy and awkward, that they were not doing the same as you did?
Well, I was having fun.
Yeah. So your parents, did they agree when you quit Harvard? Did they say, okay, fine?
Well, when I first left, you know, there was always the chance that if I failed, I could come back. Harvard's pretty generous about that. And I'm sure they were a bit concerned. But they'd seen how independent I was. Even in high school, I'd taken a year and worked instead of going to high school. And so they probably thought this could work out, but if not, it's not that damaging. It's not like I had a family that I had to provide for.
Right. How important would you say have your parents been for your career in business?
Well, they're always fundamental in terms of developing your values, your interest in reading, giving you a sense that you can succeed and do big things. My dad was quite a successful lawyer and would always come home and talk about the challenges he was involved in. My mom was very involved in the community, and she would share the decisions she was dealing with. And I think it allowed myself to feel like, gosh, you know, I can get out there and start a company. Why not?
Yeah, you have raved about your parents, especially also about your dad, whom you say is very influential. And actually, we talked to him for this show. Let's have a look.
My son is a naturally curious person. Starting around age 10, he wanted to learn as much as he could about the world so he could tackle any problem in front of him. So he read all the time. Any book he could get his hands on, he read. No parent wants to discourage their child from reading, but he read so much that he frequently brought a book to the dinner table. We ended up having to make a rule: no books at the table. When he was a little older, Bill got to use a computer for the first time.
This is not even a computer. This is simply called a teletype. I was 13 when this first showed up. I was in 8th grade here at the school, and they had a room, the teletype room that this was in, And I'd even, sneak back into school at night, skip gym.
Right.
We got pretty obsessed with figuring this thing out.
In a manner of speaking, the rest is history.
There's a lot of people who are forecasting that there'll be software stores just like there are record stores today, and that there'll be thousands and thousands of those. And I think I'd have to agree with that.
Hello, I'm Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft.
To create a new standard, it takes something that's not just a little bit different. It takes something that's really new.
I've been waiting more than 30 years to say this. Dad, I always told you I'd come back and get my degree.
There's not much else that could make a father more proud.
How old is your father now?
He's 89. He comes into the foundation every day. He's been a big help in helping us get the foundation going.
Yeah, your mother died.
She did. About 20 years ago, just after I got married, she died of breast cancer.
Right. I'm asking because I saw a beautiful commencement speech that you and your wife did at Stanford University earlier this year. And your wife said something remarkable about your success. She said it is also family and luck. Let's have a look at what she had to say there.
Bill worked incredibly hard, and he took risks, and he made sacrifices for success. But there's another essential ingredient of success, and that is luck. Absolute and total luck. When were you born? Who are your parents? Where did you grow up? None of us earn these things. These things were given to us. So when we strip away all of our luck and our privilege and we consider where we'd be without them, it becomes much easier to see someone who's poor and say, that could be me.
How lucky have you been?
I have a hard time thinking of anyone who's been luckier than I have.
Really? Which is it difficult for a scientist as you are, because luck is something that is, I mean, you can't touch it. It's there or it isn't.
No, it's unusual. And because as you say, I'm very scientific about things. But I've had an unbelievable life. I've had both in my family and now 2 careers that are incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah. Let's have a look here. Students, please stand up. And if you have any question to Bill Gates, the microphone will come. Over there is the first one.
As a student, what was your biggest fear in life and what's your biggest fear right now?
When I was a student, at first I wasn't sure how good I was. And so I'd, read a lot, study a lot. I was fairly competitive. And then fortunately, I did develop some confidence that in science and math, that not only was I fairly good, but that I could really figure it out. And so I was pretty bold about taking a lot of courses. Then I did get fearful that, what was I going to do for a career? Should I be a lawyer or a businessman? But then my obsession with computers that were just being developed right as I was growing up, I found that my hobby became the thing that I spent I built my company around. So I never really had to pick. I just pursued my hobby.
What is your biggest fear now? What is it?
I worry for my kids, that anything would ever happen to them. That's a fear. For the world, there are things like epidemics or bioterrorism that I don't think are likely. But with this Ebola crisis we've seen, if this thing had been a bit worse, something really horrific could have happened. So that's always out there, and we need to think about it and guard against it.
Right. The lady over here.
If you would run for president, what would your campaign slogan then be?
My slogan would be smart government. Not that I'd pick some partisan position, but rather just the efficiency of government, its ability to be lean, to be responsive. I wouldn't choose to be president, but I think that there's so much that could be done to make government more effective. If you brought the really best type of analytic thinking into that job. And unfortunately, the process doesn't select for the world's best manager.
Could one say the opposite?
No, they're not the world's worst manager, but it selects more based on the ideology than management experience. And it's a strange thing about democracy. Are you picking them for their point of view or just their basic capability? Sometimes you get lucky and you get both.
Yeah, so it has never been an ambition of you. I mean, they say the most powerful job in the world is President of the United States. Would you disagree? It is not?
No, it's the most powerful job. Now, you only have that job for 4 or 8 years. My job is not nearly as powerful, but I don't have to run for election.
Well, you say you're not as powerful, but you can walk into the offices of, as we saw on your Twitter account, Angela Merkel. After a college tour, you're going to Mark Rutte. You can basically walk into every office of a prime minister or president. So you have power.
I have access.
Well, and as we know, access is power.
A
right?
little bit. If you come in with a good cause like saving children's lives, sometimes it works.
Yes, but researching your life, I think you are more powerful than most elected officials.
Well, there's a lot of low-level elected officials, so maybe on average, but the head of a country really sets the tone, and I'm very privileged I get to go and talk to them and talk about some of the choices they're making.
Yeah. Over here.
What are your thoughts on student platforms for large companies? For example, if I have a great idea to improve Word, where do I pitch that?
Well, the world is doing a better job at gathering up people's ideas. We have things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, where if you have an idea, whether it's a creative song or a play or a gadget or even something that would help the poorest countries, you can go up and list it, and hopefully people come and see that. Now, you still have to work hard. It's not, these things don't fall into your lap, but it's better to be an innovator today than any time in history.
Yeah, would you say that she has more advantages right now than you had when you started in the 70s?
Yes.
How many requests do you get for money, for plans, for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? It must be staggering.
We get a lot, but we're very clear about the area we work in. We work on the diseases and the problems of the poor countries, and so we're not working in cancer, we're not working in so many different areas. If you have an idea about malaria, let me know. If you can reduce malaria, we're here to help you.
Okay, somebody's waving here.
Hypothetically, if the third world countries could sustain themselves and all those awful diseases will be gone, what would your new ambition be?
Well, we need a lot of innovation. We need energy that's cheaper and doesn't emit any CO2. I think artificial intelligence, machines that are smarter, that's moving very rapidly. So if I had to start over, I'd probably just sit down and work on our artificial intelligence. There's
right.
a lot that's going to come from that. People are underestimating how fast the progress is.
Yeah. You were talking about the climate change and the troubles we have there. I just read recently a book of Naomi Klein. Have you seen it already, the Canadian activist journalist?
No.
She wrote a book about climate change, and she said, well, Bill Gates says he does great things about that, but at the same time his investment fund is investing in oil companies, so that would be contradictory. What do you say?
Well, I think if we stopped using oil today, there would be a lot of people who wouldn't get to their schools, their jobs. Pragmatically, we have an economy that's very dependent on coal and oil. And what we need to do is we need to fund R&D and new approaches that if we make the right breakthroughs, be cheaper and CO2 free. So the idea that, no, we're not cutting the oil companies off, we're not making them illegal. The good work our foundation does is through our buying vaccines, not by some investment policy, because the world has not decided to stop using oil. In fact, we're not ready to stop using oil.
Right. Let's have a look at what your foundation exactly does.
You take from the most wealthy and you give to the least wealthy, it's good.
I welcome Bill Gates to our school.
Very well done. Great to be here.
Many smallholder farmers in Africa lack access to enough nutritious food to feed their families. They simply can't grow enough. We've already reached 250,000 farmers across 11 countries, and in the coming 5 years, we hope to reach another 500,000 farmers with these technologies.
The toilet is one of those things that's like a vaccine, where it really would change the situation.
Now is the time to eliminate the health hazards, recycle waste, and turn crap into valuable resources like clean burning fuel, fertilizer, and believe it or not, fresh water.
Okay, so your plan to eradicate polio, malaria, and tuberculosis, how far are you with that?
Well, polio is the one that is very active right now. When we started the campaign back in 1988, over 400,000 children were paralyzed or killed. This year it'll be less than 300.
Yeah, but terrorism is a problem, right? You don't get into the areas where there is terrorism, like in Afghanistan or Syria?
Yeah, the worst country, over 80% of the cases this year, because we're doing well in Nigeria, is Pakistan. And there the Taliban has actually gone out and killed women who are just simply going around giving out the vaccines to try and prevent children from being paralyzed. So it's a tough situation, but it's a virtuous cause. We're getting smarter about it, and I think we'll succeed. And then when we finish polio, that's when we'll really get serious about starting the malaria eradication.
Yeah. Religious groups in the Netherlands, there are some who prevent their kids from being vaccinated against polio. What do you make of that?
Well, it's unfortunate. Whenever you don't give a kid a vaccine, you not only put that child at risk, but you have other kids where the vaccine didn't work or they have some immune disease. And so it really is valuable for the entire community to take things like measles vaccine or polio vaccine so kids don't get sick. And getting the word out about that is very important in all countries.
Their argument is God has told us not to do this. It's not in his book to vaccinate kids.
I think they ought to listen one more time. I doubt God is saying that.
Over here, the gentleman.
Ik ben voormalige vluchteling. Nu ben ik jeugdambassadeur van WAN. En mijn vraag is, vindt malaria-besmetting epidemisch of endemisch plaats? En verandert dit als gevolg van migraties of klimaatverandering? Dank je wel.
Well, it's certainly a risk. And the world is far more connected. People are flying around. And so disease can spread. Climate change, some of the insects will have larger habitat as it gets warmer in these areas. And that's why we should double down now.
How much money has your foundation spent till now, since it exists?
Well, on malaria, about $2 billion. In total, about $40 billion.
Yeah. The amazing thing is that it doesn't make you any way poorer. You're still the richest guy in the world. So,
yeah.
Who is your lead in the investment fund? Who's this guy? He must be a genius as well.
I have a great person who helps me invest money. And a lot of my wealth, of course, comes from the incredible success of Microsoft. And then my foundation also benefits that Warren Buffett, who created Berkshire Hathaway, has given a substantial portion of his stock to the foundation. So there's really two fortunes that go into allowing us to be so generous.
You have read Capital of Piketty, the French author. You even spoke to him. Is he right that people who are enormously rich, like you are, will never lose any of their capital because the system is now that the rich people will get richer and people who just work and pay taxes will get poorer?
Well, it depends on the country. Some countries have very progressive taxation. Some countries have estate taxes that make it a little bit harder to maintain a dynasty-type approach to things. And as Piketty and I discussed, he and I, that's an area we agree on, that there are going to be big successes and large fortunes, and progressive taxation is helpful. I also think an area that he didn't talk about much in his book, philanthropy, is part of the solution. It's not the total solution, but we're seeing more and more of these people who make a fortune in the first generation decide that it's best for the world and even for their kids that they not pass it along. Instead, they take their talent and decide to give it back in some way, and that's my full-time work.
Yeah. Over there.
About 25 years ago, you made a remarkable quote, a computer in every home and on every desktop. That kind of worked out well, so I'm curious what your quote would be today based on your dreams and vision for the future.
Well, in the world of digital technology, the kind of empowerment we're going to get as computers can see, as they can hear, as they can recognize your handwriting, and screens will be everywhere. You'll have this, everyone's going to have this kind of ultimate assistant, and whether it's your wristwatch or your screens that you see, you're going to get help as though you had several assistants trying to plan things for you. Moving over to the foundation, the vision is simply that all lives have equal value, and that is that we'll take things like childhood death and we'll get it to be low not only in the rich countries where less than 1% of kids die before the age of 5, but also in the poorest countries where we're still at 5% of the kids die before age 5.
This assistant, as you call it, either it be a watch or an iPhone, what are the risks there? Because I'm sure that most of this generation, they meet via programs on computer, like what have you. If you're gay, you're on Gaydar. If you're hetero, you are on Tinder. What is the risk there? Is it fine to meet each other online and not have a conversation face to face, or do you see risks there?
Well, these are tools of empowerment, and they allow us to socialize in new ways. They allow us to reach out to people at a distance. They can also be used by bad people. People who are, trying to, organize terrorism or break into your privacy. So there's all sorts of things to be careful of. But overwhelmingly, I see this as very positive.
Would you use one of these social networks like Tinder when you were young now? Would you look for a wife on your iPhone or your watch? A date?
I don't think the initial meeting may not come that way, but in terms of staying in touch when you're busy, I used email a lot, and now these are sort of even more sophisticated forms of that. I use Twitter a lot when I want to talk about great things that people are doing or share what's going on with Ebola. Other than Hollywood stars, I have as many followers as almost anyone, and that's fun. I get to hear back from them, so even an old person can use these tools.
Okay, over here.
What is, next to Microsoft, in your opinion, the most inspiring company in the world?
Microsoft has some amazing competitors. Google's a strong company, does great technology. Apple's an amazing company. I'd say of the really big, broad companies, it's those three.
Does your investment fund invest in, for example, Google and Apple?
No. I stay away from technology companies other than Microsoft. I'm helping out the new CEO there. There's some really exciting things going on. Microsoft has got some of the best technologies in a number of areas. So,
what's the news? Because you need some new stuff. I understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a business where if you don't have new stuff, you're gonna fade away pretty quickly.
Exactly, because could happen to Microsoft what you did to IBM.
You bet. When I was CEO, I'd wake up every day saying, let's not have this be the day.
Right. And are you worried today because you have problems with
I'd
Microsoft?
love to worry. No, seriously, that kind of attitude of, hey, we have to replace our own products, we have to seize the next generation, that is the culture that a technology company has to have.
Shall we do a quick scan here in the hall? How many of you have an iPhone? Raise your hands if you have one. How many of you have a phone that is powered by a Microsoft program? How many of you do use Google? How many of you do use Bing, the Microsoft search engine?
And we have a lot of upside.
At the same time, you said we are trying to find something new. What? What is the solution for the fact that other companies have more innovations or maybe a better timing than Microsoft?
Well, Microsoft's absolutely the leader in terms of how people deal with information. Things like Microsoft Office, Exchange. It's amazing. And I love the new work going on at Microsoft. My full-time work is the foundation, but the new CEO there, Satya Nadella, has me come in and encourage people to be a bit more bold. And, absolutely, you should pay attention to the new stuff Microsoft's working on.
This is a very small room. very intimate. Can you say what it will be? We won't tell anybody.
Well, the whole way that your Office documents, you've had to think of them being on various devices. As these things move to the cloud, the ability to share, the ability to navigate the information, the ability of the software to automatically update itself so you're never worrying about that. The cloud version of Office will be 10 times better than anything that's come before.
Is it free?
There's a version of it that's free. There's also a version that you can pay for.
Over there.
How do you think it's possible for a huge company like Microsoft, which of course has got millions, if not billions of dollars, to invest in research and development, to bring out a product like Windows 8, which was the subject of so many user complaints?
Every company has to take risks. And whenever you change the user interface, even changes we've made that have worked out super, super well, the initial reaction is, okay, it's not the same as it was before. With Windows 8, we kind of did two different interfaces, and the ease of moving between them wasn't quite right. I think what you'll see with Windows 9 is we'll get the best of both of those things. We're being really careful this time. And so we're listening and doing our best, but you always have to take risk. You don't want to just do little incremental things that your users know they want. You have to sometimes jump ahead, and in this case, we may have jumped a tiny bit too far in a few of the UI things.
Yeah. Let's have a look at two people you worked very closely with, Paul Allen, with whom you started the company, and Steve Ballmer, who actually was a guest on College Tour as well. And he didn't use, he forbid at the time, I think, to use any Apple product for people who worked at Microsoft, he told us. Is that still the case?
We study them for competitive reasons, but Microsoft has great products.
Yes. And the answer to my question is? Can people use iPhones when they want to, working at your company?
For competitive analysis, absolutely.
Not for private use?
We need to use both. You want to use your products and you want to use the competitors' products, and that's and then you want to create something that's very different than either one.
Let's have a look. Paul Allen and Steve Ballmer.
There was a lot of yelling.
You guys never understood. You never understood the first thing about this.
You had to fight back intensely to stand your ground and make your position and your convictions expressed.
No. Somebody's confused. Somebody's just not thinking.
And it's exhausting. It's exhausting, but that was Bill's style.
That's ridiculous. I'm not using this thing. I mean, there's no way.
We'll figure it out.
How difficult was it to be the next CEO of this company?
A lot harder than I thought it would be. We spent a year arguing about what that meant.
We heard and read that it got so bad at a time that your wives had to help you guys stop fighting. Is it true?
Well, yeah, sort of. All right. Yeah.
Microsoft's like a fourth child to me. Children do leave the house. In this case, I guess I'm leaving the house.
Last image was of Steve Ballmer leaving the company. Were you there when he left?
Not that particular day, but he and I did a lot of events around it. Microsoft's only had 3 leaders, and the third, who took over just a little less than a year ago, Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
And Steve and I are both very enthused about what he's up to.
Did he have a bad leave? Are you still in contact with each other?
Oh, sure. Steve and I worked together for over 25 years. We built success beyond what either of us had ever dreamed of, and it's enriched our lives. He's an amazing person.
Also, but there also was an ego contest. Is that the right way to use? As he said to us when he was guest on our show, we fought. We were screaming at each other, you and him.
Well, we ran the company. He was number 2, and the company never would have been as successful as it was without Steve in that position. Then we switched positions, and that took us about a year to figure out how that worked. And then he took over, and Microsoft continued to grow very strongly.
Right. Okay, next question over there.
So I read that you had a mentor in your life, Warren Buffett. Is there someone for you that is your young protege, and what is the most important thing you taught him?
Well, I always love having young people that I get to work with, people in their 20s or 30s. At Microsoft, they were often the ones who would question what were we doing that wasn't good. And they'd come out of the university where the idea of being skeptical towards private companies was kind of standard stuff. And sometimes what they were saying, like, were we fast enough to go after the internet? They were the ones who helped really push us that was going to be a huge opportunity. I still help mentor a number of people at Microsoft. I mentor some people at the foundation. And often it's just when there's a lull in their career, to encourage them to stay the course, that their current manager may not be the best, but they have to have confidence in themselves. They've got to renew their skill set, and maybe sometimes actually make a career change. And so just having somebody who can sit down and make sure you're taking the long-term view and remind you that your potential's super high, that's often super helpful.
Well, I wonder, what is the best age you think to come up with a great, bright idea? Do you have to be like this age, like people who are in their 20s? Do they dare to dream most?
Most of the huge breakthrough ideas come from people in their 20s. Not exclusively, a few in their 30s. And you can still make huge contributions of organizing people and backing new ideas. But the wildest ideas are coming from the people who look at things with a completely fresh mind.
Yeah. What do you make of the CEO of Tesla, Mr. Musk? Is that somebody that you...
No, Elon's incredible. I mean, he runs Tesla, he runs SpaceX, he's doing satellites now. Elon is one of the people who's joined the Giving Pledge, where he's committed to give away the majority of his fortune. So he's also a brilliant philanthropist.
Yeah. You pledged a lot of money for the fight against Ebola with your foundation. And the Ebola virus led to a hysterical response everywhere in the world, also in the US. Let's have a look.
We have to make decisions on science, and I am completely healthy. You could hug me, you could shake my hand. There is no way that I would give you Ebola.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got an Ebola outbreak. We have bad actors that can come across the border. We need to seal the border and secure it.
Certainly West Africans should not come to the United States. The law provides for this. It's an old law, in fact.
So what do you make of these responses that everybody has seen in the US?
Well, the fact that infectious disease could get out and get to the Netherlands or get to the United States, that's something we haven't put enough thinking into. Were we ready as a world to get enough volunteers to figure out what drugs should be used? We were way too slow, and this could have been much worse. If this had been just a little bit more transmissive than it turns out to be, the idea that you could have a really big epidemic would be possible. So as we work super hard to get this under control, and there's starting to be signs that there's a good chance that we will, I hope we learn the lessons that we weren't smart enough, we weren't fast enough. Some politicians were over the top, but they didn't understand the disease. The information wasn't there. The case data wasn't easily shared.
How do you use the money that you pledged? You pledged $50 million?
Yeah, $50 million, and we'll end up spending more than that. It's to fund getting workers in to build centers. A large chunk of it is to fund creating the vaccine that will make sure that if this is still going next summer, we have that as a tool to stop it, or for a future Ebola outbreak, it would be there. Our strength is in the scientific areas, but we've given money both to the delivery, and then every day, over half my email is about all the stuff we're doing to help out to get some type of cure.
Right. Over there, the lady, yeah.
If you would receive a phone call tomorrow morning that a successful vaccine has been developed and is ready for the market, would you prefer it to be for malaria, HIV/AIDS, or another infectious disease? And could you clarify your choice?
No, that's a fantastic question. We need breakthrough vaccines, and the the biggest killers in the world today are HIV and malaria are two of the top 5. We are among the biggest funders of the research to create those vaccines. If I had one wish, I guess I'd pick malaria, a totally effective malaria vaccine. We have a partially effective one, but a totally effective one would be incredible. With AIDS, we need to have a cure, but we do have the drugs that if you take them lifelong, you're largely symptom-free. But it would be even easier and better. And someday, I think, we'll be able to prevent people from getting the disease with the vaccine, and we might even be able to cure the people who actually have it. So I have about 5 vaccines that we're putting a lot into, and I think there's a chance we'll get all 5 of them in the next 10 to 15 years.
Over there, the lady, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Gates, I was wondering, does money really buy you happiness? And off the record, is your son still single?
My son is 16, so when I left Seattle, he was still single. Money at a certain level in terms of being able to afford a college tuition, afford a good doctor, afford a nice vacation. Money is an amazing thing. Now, once you get past a certain level, there's diminishing returns on what you can do with the money, and that's where, I think at some level, most of that money should just be for philanthropy.
When was that level reached for you? When did you think, okay, this is it?
Well, I can eat 3 hamburgers a day, and when I was 15, I was making enough as a programmer that I wasn't limiting my consumption. I got to buy a Porsche. It was a nice car. I got to live in a nice place. I've never really had to really make sacrifices in terms of the basic things.
Yeah. This week, I saw the IT entrepreneur in China who's called the Chinese Bill Gates, Jack Ma, who started Alibaba. And he said, actually, I'm so rich now that it is almost a burden. Let's have a look.
Especially Forbes, or I don't know which magazine said I'm the richest guy of China. This is a great pain. Really, people say, well, Jack, please, rich people is good. Yeah, it is good, but not that richest man of the world, of China. It's a great pain, because when you're richest person in the world, everybody's surrounding you for money.
What about that? So he says it's a burden. Is he right?
No. It's a privilege. Jack's a great person, very engaged in his business. He's starting to do some philanthropy. And as he figures out what's fun for him in terms of philanthropy, I think he'll say, wow, what a great thing for me that I get to do this.
Are you trying to lure him in for the Giving Pledge, the organization where a lot of people with a lot of money are giving money?
Yeah, I'm talking to him about that.
He's saying there are some negatives, and I'm sure that you had that experience as well. With wealth comes enormous responsibility, but also dangers. People are looking for you sometimes to do something to you in a very negative way. How difficult is it to live with such an enormous amount of money?
The benefits outweigh the negatives.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's no problem to have security, to be surrounded all the time by people.
Well, you're famous. What's it like?
Nobody is following me.
No, notoriety, I'd say more than the wealth. Being well known means that you do give up some level of privacy.
Yeah.
But what I get in return when I want to go and meet a great scientist and talk to them, when I want to talk to Jack Ma about what did he see, what did he do, I get to meet such an interesting set of people that the fact I've had to give up some privacy means I still think of it as a great privilege.
Right. We should invite him for this show, I think. Jack
Oh,
Ma.
absolutely. He's very interesting.
Okay. Over there, the lady. Yeah.
What is your biggest challenge in life right now?
Well, my biggest challenge, other than being a good father, is really trying to keep the things that we need to do for the poorest in people's mind. Unfortunately, the rich live in rich countries and the poor are far away, and people don't often think about them. And so this idea of, yes, the generosity, the aid budget, the volunteering, the giving people to it makes a huge difference.
Could one say at this time, because we met in January 2013, I interviewed you. At the time we had a new government who cut budget on aid and development, €1 billion. And you came here to say to politicians, come on, don't do that. The Netherlands is in the front line of this fight. Now, after this show, you're going to the Prime Minister, Rutte, and he cut the budget. So what are you going to say to him?
Well, the Netherlands has been incredibly generous with its aid budget. For almost all time, it was right up there with Sweden and Norway, above 0.7%. Right. In the last few years, it's dropped below that. Now, not dramatically below that. And my hope is that the voters will get activated and say, okay, as the economy improves, let's go back. You know, we can be generous, go back to 0.7%. I think part of the challenge is we need to make sure people understand the wonderful things that the Dutch aid does, buying vaccines, buying drugs for HIV. There's a little bit of a cynicism. All it takes is one little story about corruption, and people are acting like, oh, that's not just 0.1%, that's clouding the whole image of the endeavor. So this, I think, fits in what I was saying, that making that visible, getting people to care in every country, even a country like this one that has been so generous and so international, it can fade as a priority. And if the voters vote in a party whose platform includes cutting aid, then they shouldn't be surprised that the aid gets cut. But fortunately, they get to vote again, and maybe those platforms will change. So I'm hopeful that the history of being an angel, that'll be fully resumed.
Are you disappointed that this country doesn't have that position anymore?
Dutch aid is actually done quite intelligently. They do agriculture, they do sanitation, this HPV vaccine, getting that to girls throughout the entire world so they don't get cervical cancer. There's good things in there. And so when it is cut, it does have consequence. The UK went up to 0.7%, even when they had a very bad economy. Sweden and Norway are actually up at 1%. So it is possible. The generosity makes a big difference.
Yeah. So this is what you're going to tell Mark Rutte when you meet him in a couple of minutes.
Well, he already knows all those things, but I'll remind him.
Okay. Over there.
How do you feel about the NSA and its oversight of computer usage? Sorry.
So the spying game that we are talking about now.
Yeah, well, there's a question of if governments never knew anything that anybody was saying, couldn't track terrorists who are getting nuclear weapons or biological weapons, would the world be a better place? Is there any role at all for governments trying to see what's going on? And if there is such a role, then how do you draw the line between the fact that people who aren't doing criminal things deserve to have privacy? Clearly the US NSA was not careful, was doing things it shouldn't have been doing, but to go to the extreme and saying that, no, I'd never want the government to look into what's going on, I think that would throw out something that's quite important.
Yeah.
Is it hard not to be in charge of Microsoft at times when decisions are made that you don't agree with?
Well, when I was CEO, I got to make most of the decisions, and so I got spoiled, I admit, by that. And then when I chose to step down as CEO, I had to get used to the fact I was just one input of many. Of course, I care about the company, I love the company, and so I'm always giving input. The new CEO, Satya, he so far is off to a great start. He gets to make decisions, but he's been nice enough to ask what I think. And
your friend Steve Jobs did a second act with Apple. Are you looking for something similar to do at Microsoft, to come up with a great idea that will give the company traction again?
Well, I'm helping the company with some breakthrough things, but
do you still have it in you?
My second act is running the foundation. This is my full-time job for the rest of my life. There's plenty of work to be done in poor countries that I'll spend all my time on this.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of more questions over there.
In 1983, you got a very angry phone call from Steve Jobs. How did you react to it?
Well, Steve was a strong personality. He's brilliant. Even when we were working with Apple, Microsoft did the original software for the Macintosh. We were the only company other than Apple to ship software on that first machine. So we had this super close working relationship, and Steve was very volatile, but he was brilliant. He had great taste. He was a great partner. The work we did on the Macintosh was incredibly successful, and he and I became good friends, even though our companies competed against each other most of the time.
You met him shortly before he died, right?
That's right.
What were you talking about?
We talked about our family, our wives. We talked about had the computing revolution done enough for education, and our disappointment that it hadn't yet achieved some things we dreamed of. We talked about some of the mistakes we made. He had different strengths than I had, so we could laugh about that a little bit.
It's a tempting question. What is your biggest mistake that you talked about then?
Well, we fell short in terms of the computer changing the education. We both felt like we could have done better there. Steve's strength was in product design, the overall sort of taste that he applied, where he was just an intuitive genius. That's not as much a strength for me.
So you like his products as well?
I like his taste.
Yeah. Oh, that's not the same.
Well, the products have changed since he was involved.
Yeah. We saw Tim Cook recently, the new CEO of Apple, coming out with a statement that he is gay. Let's have a look.
Apple CEO Timothy Cook is breaking his silence in a new editorial in Bloomberg Businessweek where he is announcing he is gay. He writes, "I'm proud to be gay and I consider being gay among the greatest gifts."
A memorial to Apple founder Steve Jobs has been dismantled in the Russian city of St. Petersburg after the man who succeeded him at the helm of the company, Tim Cook, came out as gay.
Was it actually courageous of him to make this statement?
Absolutely. It wasn't a great surprise to people who work around Tim, but the fact that he spoke out about it is a great credit to him. He did it very well. I think it's also a milestone in terms of the progress that a lot of countries have made in terms of supporting gay marriage, supporting gay adoption, supporting non-discrimination.
So when you see the statue being removed in
well,
Russia...
Russia's not one of those countries that's made progress. But I'm proud of the fact the United States is one of those countries.
Yeah. You almost have to leave for the Prime Minister, so 2 more questions. Where's the microphone? Very quickly, over here.
If you hypothetically ever be President of the United States, which major aspects would you change and how would you tackle these problems?
Well, I'm not going to ever be a politician because I have such a great job, and it's a lifetime job, and I get to work with my wife and amazing people. I do think that the country could be better run. We have a lot of inequity where if you grow up and your parents aren't wealthy, the chance of you getting a good education or even getting into college and completing college is far, far less. So our dream of equity, we're falling short on that. We still believe in it, but we're not executing it well. And we have very tight budget things, partly because we haven't managed healthcare well. So I think there's room for a president to make government more effective and restore people's faith in government. Right now, if you poll people, they feel like government's just a bunch of politicians who argue. They're not really exercising expertise. They're not really showing us the trade-offs involved. And it's important that that get fixed. In a democracy, eventually, the voters will pick somebody they like, and we need to.
Hillary Clinton?
Well, I'm not guessing what's going to happen in the next presidential election. It's not just the president. We need politicians as a whole to move to more of an idea of being pragmatic, more centrist, more willing to compromise. Yeah. Just the president alone in the U.S. is not able to do that.
Right. A last question always is, what is the best advice you have for the students here and the people watching this at home?
Well, I hope you're all optimistic about the opportunities you have. You know, the fact that you can go out and learn anything, the fact that you have the ability to see what's going on in the world and play a role in making it better. You know, I'm envious that you're growing up in this amazing day and age. And I think by investing in yourself, by having ambitious goals, by being impatient, being optimistic, you'll be able to achieve a lot.
Bill Gates. Before we let you go, de volgende gast, we hebben er nog eentje, is deze in december. Kijk mee.
You know, the strange thing about the English language is that we have a lot of insult lines about the Dutch. Dutch courage is alcohol. Double Dutch, a Dutch auction, a Dutch wife, all these phrases, and yet...
What's the Dutch wife?
It's a sort of plastic inflatable woman.
He's our next guest on College. You like him, John Cleese?
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah. Bill Gates, thank you so much for being here. You have to run. I say goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And have a great time in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands. Tot ziens allemaal. Bedankt voor het kijken. John Cleese is onze laatste gast op 25 december op eerste kerstdag. Daarna zijn we er even uit en dan zijn we in januari weer terug met een nieuwe reeks van College Tour. Bedankt voor het kijken. Tot ziens allemaal. Jullie ook. Dag.
NTR, speciaal voor iedereen.